Welcome back. This is the 20th episode in creating a third person controller. Huge congratulations if you've made it this far. If this is your first time seeing this, check the link in the description for the entire playlist so you can follow along from the beginning. Today, we are going to be fixing our jump animation to make it a lot smoother when landing from a jump or a fall. Quick reminder, like and subscribe if you're learning something new. Want the full course right now? Join my Patreon or become a channel member to access everything immediately. Prefer to pay once? The complete course is on Udemy with lifetime access. Links below. Now let's get into it. Okay, so things are looking pretty good. We've got our character moving very nicely here, but I've just noticed there's a few things that we can improve before we move on to the weapon. So one thing that I've noticed is that when we're running and jumping, when we go back to the run, we are having a very sharp animation transition, and that is fairly easy to fix. Plus, when we transition back, so I'll play this again, into the idle animation, we're actually doing that once we've landed, and we could try and transition a little bit earlier so that it looks a little bit nicer for us. And some other stuff we'll clean up as well. So the first one's pretty easy. In the fall script, we're just saying if is on floor to idle. So what we can do is we can do something similar to what we've done in the sprint fall. We've got a check to see if we're pressing sprint, then we go back to sprint. If we have direction, if it's not equal to vector 3.0, then we go to the run, and all else, then we go back to idle. So we can implement pretty much the exact same set of conditions in the fall. So we can say if direction is not equal to vector 3.0, then we can go to finished.emit and we can go to run, okay? And then else idle. And that'll just help with the sharper animations on that when we're running going back to that. So now that'll look good because we're only implementing one transition. I believe if you go from multiple transitions at once, then it starts from the previous one. So that's why you end up with that harsh transition, because it cuts the transition of the fall animation directly from idle to then into run. So that helps a little bit. Now, to transition back early, we need to find out if we're close to the ground, right? Because right now we're just checking that if we're is on floor, right? Which is, this function is just a call to return owner.isOnFloor, right? So we're just checking to see if the character body is on the floor. So if we're already on the floor, then we've already landed, right? So it's kind of, it's a little bit too late to be calling a transition. Now, this is not so important for us since we don't have a transition animation, if that makes sense. So we don't have like a landing animation. If you had one of those, this would be even more critical. So we do need to implement it, especially if you plan to add one. So what we can do is actually raycast to the ground to basically just check a little bit in advance to see if we're going to hit the ground. So we can just add a raycast. Oh, that's come up on the wrong screen. So we can just add a raycast. We're going to use a raycast 3D here. We're not going to do anything fancy. In the inspector, it's got a target position. I believe that's directly down already, right? Yeah. And it's -1. You know what? It might actually be okay. But it could potentially be 0.5. It could be a little bit smaller. Depends on the length of your animation, realistically. So we can just call this a floor raycast. This might come in useful for other things. We'll have it here. And what we can do is for the fall, export var floor raycast. And it's a raycast 3D. And that's it. We can just say, assign that to the floor raycast. We'll need to do the sprint fall as well, because it's the same exact thing. All right, so we've got that. What we need to do then is we can just simply say if floor raycast.is colliding, and here we will transition our animations. And we can do the same check as down here. So we can say if direction is not equal to vector 3.0, then we want to go animation change request. We're not actually going to change the state. We're just going to start changing the animation early. Animation change request dot emit, and we'll just pass in the animation that we want. So in this case, it would be the run animation. Else, we're going to go to idle. animation change requested, and we'll dot emit to idle. Okay, and just remembering that even though these are the same, these could be different for you because this requires the animation. So we come back to the animation tree and we can see we've got run idle here. And I suppose it's kind of difficult to tell exactly from here, but we're going to start transitioning early. We can exaggerate that just to get an idea of what that looks like. So we can make this like -2, which is higher than we can even jump. So we should just transition directly back into the standing. And you can see that we do that there. So yeah, just it's a matter of, you could probably work this out with math and work out how high you need to be, like how long it takes, how long the animation transition is. For us, it's 0.2 seconds, I believe. So if you had a transition animation, you would want to know how long that animation is, but we don't have a transition animation. So really we only care about how long the transition is, which is 0.2 seconds, right? So in the jump, where's the stats? The time to land is 0.4. And so you can do a little bit of math. For us, it's really easy because half the jump height is half the amount of time and it matches the time to land. So if we make this -0.05, we're going to detect it with 0.2 seconds left to hit the ground, which is the amount of time that we would like. So I don't exactly know if that's a perfect formula, but 0.5 for us is the right distance for it to be. Now, something that we do need to consider, and I don't know if we've looked at yet, is the layers. So right now our player is still just on layer 1. Now, we don't necessarily want our player to be on layer 1. We do want to mask it. Essentially, the way to think about these layers and masks is the layer is the collision layer that your object is on. So if something was to look at layer 2, it would find the player. But the player does only look for things on layer 1 at the moment. So it would not collide with things on layer 2. So it's going to collide with things on layer 1 and everything else it's going to ignore, right? So if we brought something in here, we can bring a static object, static body 3D, give it a mesh instance 3D, and give it a collision shape 3D, and also give it a box shape. Give this a box shape, a box mesh. Okay, so we've got a static mesh, right? And right now it's on layer 1, right? Collision, layer 1. So the player is going to collide with it. So I bring that in here and I try to run into it. I have to jump over it, right? So if I remove it from layer 1 and instead put it on layer 2, I'm running straight through it. We go back to layer 1. We're running into it. So that gives you an idea, like a practical idea of what we need to detect. So just remove that static body. For our player, we want our player to be on layer 2. We don't want it to be on the world layer because we don't want to have something like the floor raycast detect the player, right? It's not right now because it's right below the collision shape, but depending on where you put that and depending on how your collision shape looks, it might be different from mine, you might end up with overlaps. And so the collision mask for the raycast should be on layer 1 because we want to detect the world, which is the thing that the player interacts with as the floor, but the way that the player interacts with the world, we don't want the floor raycast to detect it, basically, and vice versa. We don't want the player to be able to detect the raycast. So that we'll move this to layer 1. We'll put the player on layer 2, which I've already named. So I guess I talked about that at the very beginning, but never actually put the player on it. So now when we're starting to need to detect things outside of the world, it's becoming important. All right, so that is the floor raycast. That should help with transitions, especially if you have transitional animations. Next, we're going to do a little bit of refactoring. That's all for this week, guys. Next week, we're going to be fixing up our animation player so that we will have a full-fledged third-person controller with animations, which is really awesome. If you're finding this series helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to get access to the entire course, then you can become a channel member or join on Patreon. If you don't want a monthly fee, but do want to get access to the course, you can get access on Udemy. Links in the description. I'll see you guys all next week.